Hello and welcome to the Humble History channel. Top 10 Worst Jobs to Have During the Industrial Revolution. Number 10. Coal Harrier. A harrier, also sometimes called a coal drawer or coal thruster, was a child or woman employed by a collier to transport the coal that they had mined. Women would normally get the children to help them because of the difficulty of carrying the coal. Common particularly in the early 19th century, the harrier pulled a korf, basket or small wagon, full of coal along roadways as small as 16 inches in height. They would often work 12-hour shifts, making several runs down to the coal and back to the surface again. Injuries and death were commonplace due to mines collapsing and dangerous respiratory diseases. Number 9. Chimney Sweeps. A chimney sweep is a person who clears ash and soot from chimneys. During the Industrial Revolution and many other times throughout history, children suffered the most. Most chimney sweeps were children as they were small enough to wiggle their way up a narrow chimney. The working conditions were harsh and unforgiving. It was not uncommon for small fires to be lit under the child to encourage a speedy clean. Deaths were not common but certainly not unheard of due to the child or worker becoming stuck and suffocating to death. Respiratory diseases later in life for these children were almost a certainty as well. Number 8. Breaker Boys. A breaker boy was a coal mining worker in the United States and United Kingdom whose job was to separate impurities from coal by hand in a coal breaker. Although breaker boys were primarily children, elderly coal miners who could no longer work in the mines because of age, disease, or accident were also sometimes employed as breaker boys. Deaths and injuries were extremely common due to conditions, safety standards and a severe lack of training. This took the lives of countless workers, young and old. The pay for these jobs were normally extremely low even for the time. Number 7. Tunnel Watchman. The tunnel watchman punched a time card at one end of the tunnel and walked to the other end of the tunnel, making inspections as he went. Then he would punch his time card again and head back through the tunnel. Back and forth he went for his entire shift, punching his time card at each end as proof that he was doing his job. The exact job of a tunnel watchman has been debated for some past years, but it's believed they checked the track in tunnels for debris or damage. This was an unsavory, dangerous job due to so much that could go wrong, from derailings and explosions to simply being on the track at the wrong time. Number 6. Mudlarks. Mudlarks would search the muddy shores of the River Thames at low tide for anything that could be sold, and sometimes, when occasion arose, pilfering from river traffic. By at least the late 18th century, people dwelling near the river could scrape a subsistence living this way. Mudlarks were usually either youngsters aged between 8 and 15, or the robust elderly. This was a dirty job, where disease and infection was common and expected. Number 5. Rat Catcher. A rat catcher is a person who practices rat catching as a professional form of pest control. Keeping the rat population under control was practiced in Europe to prevent the spread of diseases, most notoriously the Black Plague, and to prevent damage to food supplies. This job was dangerous due to the constant risk of disease or infection from the fleas rats carried. In modern developed countries, such a professional is otherwise known as a pest control operative or pest exterminator. Number 4. Resurrectionists. Resurrectionists were body snatchers who were commonly employed by anatomists in the United Kingdom during the 18th and 19th centuries to exhume the bodies of the recently dead. They would dig up the bodies of the recently deceased, steal the values and sell the body to a college or university. This happened so often that the grave gun became a thing. The grave gun was a gun rigged to several tripwires throughout the grave site, designed to protect your dead loved ones and their treasures. Number 3. Matchstick maker. Matchsticks are made by cutting wood into thin sticks and then dipping the ends into white phosphorus, a highly toxic chemical. This work was mainly performed by teenage girls who worked in terrible conditions, often for between 12 and 16 hours a day with few breaks. The girls were forced to eat at their workstations, meaning the toxic phosphorus got into their food, leading to some developing the dreadful condition known as phossy jaw, which leads to severe disfigurement of the jaw. Number 2. Slave. Slaves worked their own land to supplement their poor diet. Any extra was sold at Sunday markets, vital meeting places to exchange news. All other gatherings, to celebrate a birth or marriage or to mourn a death, and they were strictly controlled by the owner. During the course history, Europeans developed views of their own racial superiority for reasons of self-interest. Plantation owners wanted labor and justified the barbarity of their treatment by using biblical arguments that Africans were less than human. Life on the plantations was hard, with regular beatings and little sleep. This must have been hell. Before we reach number 1, please like and subscribe. Also smash that notify button to stay up to date on all the latest videos from the humble historian. Thanks. Number 1. Tosher. Toshers made their living down in the dark sewers, sifting through raw sewage to find any valuables that had fallen down the drain. It was extremely dangerous work. Noxious fumes formed deadly pockets. The tunnels frequently crumbled. There were swarms of rats, and at any moment the sluices might be opened and a tide of filthy water might wash the Toshers away. As a result of these dangers, Toshers generally worked in groups, instantly recognizable in their canvas trousers, aprons with many large pockets and lanterns strapped to their chests. Most Toshers also carried a long pole with a hoe at the end to investigate piles of human waste for dropped treasures. This was truly the most disgusting job and deserving of the number 1 spot. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Which do you think was the worst job and why? Comment your answer down below and don't forget to come back for more great videos.